Morning and welcome to the May 16th, 2023 Berry County Committee of the Whole. Please stand for our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Limited public comment at this time. Anyone wishing to address the board may do so for up to 3 minutes.
Good morning, Rick Moore, continuously the harbor master of the Podunk Lake Yacht Club. I wish to remind members and guests, including those with broken microphones, to please use your outdoor voice so we can all hear the wonderful things you have to say to us. You spent time to come here to speak with us. We all wish to hear what you're saying. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut in front of the line of any women who want to speak, but I wanted to say thank you very much for the support of the employees of the county with the raises that you gave. My dad used to tell me when we go to the restaurant, you know, it's easy to bitch and complain when the food isn't right, but you need to just as quickly compliment the cook when it is done rightly. And I come over here and I've asked for things, and I want to make sure that I took some time to come over this morning and say thank you very much. It makes a big difference. We've got a couple employees, several, that are new, that are young. An example, one young lady's expecting twins, kind of unexpectedly expecting twins. And, you know, this kind of raise is benefit. It's a car payment for her. It's things that are tangible that sometimes we take for granted. So it's a huge thank you that I wanted to give you for doing what you didn't have to do and going above and beyond for the employees. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Additional public comment?
Good morning. Our names are Diane and Richard Wright. We're full-time residents of Pine Lake, owning 2 parcels. Thank you for allowing us to comment. We respectfully urge the commissioners to reject the resolution 2314 and to discontinue the project and any expenditures associated with the Pine Lake water management based on the following. The publicly announced agenda for this meeting was missing 5 pages and did not include complete information to have a fact-based discussion and make decisions. Number 2, Pine Lake's 1993 legal lake level has not been maintained in the past as a responsibility by the county. If it was, wouldn't the county be liable for significant personal spending by residents to remedy water intrusion in 2020? Mr. Dole's survey respondents overwhelmingly, nearly 70%, said that the 1994 level is not desirable. Number 3, what was the purpose of a survey if the county intended to ignore majority response and continue to pledge money that will ultimately be assessed to us? 55% of the survey respondents to the only lake-wide survey regarding the Pine Lake Water Management Project said no to the project. The majority of Pine Lake survey respondents don't want this. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment?
Good morning.
Good morning, David.
Good morning. My name is Dave Tripp. I am an attorney here in town. I represent the Friends of Pine Lake. In 1995-96, I represented the Pine Lake Association with regards to establishing a lake level at Pine Lake. I believe that both of these associations represent a majority of the property owners around Pine Lake, and they were all opposed to regulating the upper lake level. The last time this came up in circuit court, I represented the Pine Lake Association. It was denied by Judge Schuster, went to the Court of Appeals, came back. Judge Fisher made the decision, and in his opinion, one of the things he said was it would be improper to establish a maximum lake level where the level at which any substantial harm to a small number of property owners has only occurred a few times over a period of 80 years. I think that's still true today, and why the county government wants to support this when it should be the small vocal members who, around Pine Lake, who want this, they can file an action in circuit court. That's where this belongs, and that's why I think that to keep funding a project that is certainly been denied once before, and I don't think the report that was done back then or the judge's opinion should be overturned at this point. Certainly, people who have been affected have taken remedial measures, and so maybe that the 25 homes that the study said might be affected at the highest level may be down, and there may be less than that at this point. Again, I talked with a hydrologist. We expect to retain his services, and he questioned pumping the water. And again, I wasn't sure the exact distance, but he said that if it goes right back into the groundwater, it may come right back into the lake. So you pump it only a third of a mile away, and depending upon how the soils are, it may simply come back in, and you're going to pump it around and around. And if you pump off too much in the spring when it's high, are the lake levels going to fall below a level that can be maintained with the pumps that are there now? Those things need to be decided by the circuit court, not by this, the Board of Commissioners. It's a court matter, and I think that's where it belongs, and that's where it ought to stay. And simply funding this for the benefit of the few vocal people should not be your job. It should be up to the circuit court judge to make that decision. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Additional public comment?
Excuse me, Bob Hanley. I live on Pine Lake. Dave kind of stole my thunder. I was going to introduce him. I didn't realize he was going to go ahead of me. You know, you all know our thoughts. We've got a number of people here today who have never been to a commission meeting because they learned about the agenda. I think all the facts have been stated out there. A couple months ago, I did come before this board and requested that, and I believe the Wrights said 55% of the people on Jim Dull's survey said they were against it. Actually, I believe that number is higher because there were like about 120 who had no opinion. I think there were 70 that said they were for it, and there were 100 and some that were against it. So you can't lump in those people who said they had no opinion with people who say they're for it, for the drain. That's why I recommended a couple months ago for a bipartisan survey to be done to put this issue to bed once and for all. It doesn't matter that we have a lot of people here that are against the drain. Tomorrow or next week, you could have a bunch of people in here for the drain. I say we should put that issue to bed and then take it from there. So I'm hoping you will look back at what I'd requested before. Again, it should not come from Mr. Dull's office because for whatever reason he appears to be biased to me to this project. It should be agreement between both the pro and anti-drain groups to come up with language for that survey. It will be overwhelming against. I have no concerns. Let's put this issue of whether people want it to bed or not. That's only one aspect of this, but we've got to put that issue to bed. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment?
Good morning. Ted DeVries, Prairieville Township trustee and Pine Lake resident. Yes, last night I had a chance to look at the township or the county meeting on 12/6, the cow, which had Jim Dull and his attorney talk about certain things about Pine Lake. I have had a chance to talk to the supervisor for Gun Plains Township, and Prairieville Township has not signed the resolution that Jim gave us to to pump to the gravel pit. Hopefully, he'll probably explain a little bit about that today. Gun Plains is not. They're looking for more information on exactly what it's going to do when the water gets to the gravel pit. I filled out that survey, and one of the things, and I'll probably run out of time, but I've been at Pine Lake 19.5 years, though my family and I were out in the lake starting in 1960, where we visited friends on Long Point. I also taught swimming lessons at MCTI in the early 70s, when there was a lot of water in the lake. We do have people that are affected by the flood waters that happened in late 2018-19, when we had the big 894. That did affect a lot of people. We had sandbags all over Pine Lake. I had sandbags in front of my house. At one time, when we first moved in, I had 6 feet of beach. It did end up coming up to the little seawall that we had. We had to have that replaced. Since then, the water's been, has come up a little bit since that 892.5. On my survey, that's exactly one of the things I said was, I said no to the 890.5. I feel that at 890.5, there's going to be a lot of areas on Pine Lake that are going to people aren't going to be able to navigate their boats. It'd be a mess if it got that low. I think that normal lake level needs to be raised up, and I'm not sure if this is something that the county board is in charge of doing, or once again, if it has to go, through the courts, but that 890.5 is too low.
Could you summarize your comments for us?
Sure. And I wanted to say too, I guess that special assessment, the other thing I wanted to bring up was the special assessment district. When we were billed by mistake, 41,000 for this project, it went out to 532 parcels. When I did the weed assessment district, we had between 630 and 640 parcels. So there were over 100 parcels that were not in that initial billing. And I just don't want to see us end up like the Watson Drain District, which ended up costing Prairieville Township itself over $1 million that the township is stuck with paying.
Thank you. You can complete that at the second public comment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ted. Additional public comment?
Thank you for having us. I guess I'm going to be the only positive voice about this the initiative to put a drain in Pine Lake. My name is Joe Langoni. I live at 11,000 Boniface Point Drive. My wife's grandparents bought their property in 1949. I'm 76. My wife is 74. She's grown up there. I learned to sail there. My kids learned to swim and water ski there. We've been there very long. When we were high school sweethearts in the 60s, there was a time when the lake was so low that they finally put the wells in to pump some water in, which is fine. And there were places that you couldn't navigate. The channels were too low, and you pretty much had to push the boat through. But I'll tell you right now, I think it's well established that our climate is changing. There's no doubt about that. For whatever reason, you can argue about why, but the climatologists are telling us that it's going to be warmer and wetter in Michigan. So what's happened in the last 10 years, and I can tell you, since they stopped pumping, they pumped in for a short period of time in the 60s. When they stopped, I don't believe they've ever pumped water again. the natural lake came up, the springs got more active. There's no inlet or outlet, so we get whatever's there. The problem with that is, and quite frankly, the first time there was a problem in the 90s that our attorney was involved in here, I was against putting a drain in. It was going to be extremely expensive. They wanted a $50,000 engineering fee and all sorts of things. There were relatively few people that were really impacted, maybe 10 or 12. Dr. Simon brought a suit and the other people. And at that time, I was against a drain. It didn't impact us. Well, it's impacted many people. I was at the first meeting when, at Delton, and one whole side of bleachers was full of people. And when there was asked for a show of hand of who wanted something to be done to drain the lake, have some kind of control of the lake, it was unanimous. So you can argue about who's pro and who's con, but I'll tell you, if you go around Pine Lake, you'll see how many seawalls have had to be put in. And I put a $12,000 seawall on Lake One. I lost 25 feet of shoreline, which wasn't so bad, but it was actually 3 feet under my deck on my house that I built in 2006. And I am for this because I think we're gonna have a problem, and part of the problem is Boniface Point Drive and Oak Ridge.
Could you summarize your comments for us, please? Your 3 minutes is expired,
Okay.
so.
The streets are at a point where if you raise the streets to keep water across the street, the county had to actually bring gravel into Boniface. The water's gonna go into the homes more. So I think we need to do something about it. I hope this will go forward.
Thank you. Additional public comment? Thank you.
Shelley Lake, Irving Township. And I just wanted to say, first of all, I love seeing all the people here. It's only been 2.5, almost 3 years since I got involved, when I felt like we had broken elections. So whatever you start seeing in your community to get you involved, I would just encourage everyone, go to your township meetings every month. Because once something is being signed in or approved, it's too late. You need to be there and see what's going on to kind of keep up with things. The other thing I was just gonna let everyone know, Irving Township, our cemetery, I don't remember the name of it, but it's on State Street. We are having a cleanup party. We have a lot of broken pots and just kind of a hazard. So this Saturday, we have our sexton coming out at 9. And a bunch of us, and we're gonna place all new military emblem markers and new flags. So I would just wanted to remind all the townships that if you can, we're running out of time to get your flags in for Memorial Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. Additional public comment?
Good morning, Gary White, Nashville. At the last meeting, Ionia County came up, and it came up on account of wages. Ionia County has come up in the past here with the health department. They are a one-county health department. They pay less per capita per person in their county for the health department. And we need to look at really going into a health department by Berry County. You also brought up it was sort of odd. Mark Doster was the only one that talked about, well, what's it gonna cost for the raises? $455,000 plus for just this coming year for about 7 months. Nobody asked what's gonna cost the next year or the next year. So if I figured it out right, the next year it's gonna be $781,000 for the 3% plus $781,000 for the 3% you get this year, plus you got 1%. So that 2 years is 1.5 or 1.6 million. This is just round numbers. Maybe I'm wrong, but if I'm figuring it right. And the following years, it's going to be another, 1.67. You got 1%. so it's gonna go up even more. Where's this coming out of, what part of the budget? Nobody talked about where this money is going to come from. We have the money, but nobody said where we had the money at. Here a few weeks ago, I gave you a document that I'd put together back last year of how to fund the jail, which included, you weren't here that meeting, but I could get a copy of that for yourself, which was using the money that was in the budget. But as I said, nothing really took place. You're still not talking how you're gonna fund the jail publicly. You're not talking how you're gonna, or where you're gonna get the funding for the COA facility, where the money's coming from. It appears the COA wants a larger facility. Now they're gonna have to go out and raise some money, so that's not going to really get nowhere. I said, I'm just looking at what's going on here saying, well, we're still sort of lost. The citizens of Berry County voted no on a millage for a jail. So if you are true representatives, you will listen to them and not be coming back after another millage, because they should only have to talk once. You've had many people in here talk today, and quite often Bob says, I hear ya, but if you hear them, what are you gonna do about it now? Are you gonna just blow by and pass it anyways? You gonna come ask for another millage after the citizens of Berry County said no? As I said, the money that was given away last week, you made a larger gap between the top people and the bottom people. You did not even try. I'm saying you did not even try to lessen that gap. When it comes to the property,
Could you summarize your comments, please?
okay, I'll just talk when it comes up on the property.
And just so you know, I made an error last week. It's, you are allowed to have a question, but not discussion. So when it comes up, if you have a question, you can certainly ask a question of commissioners, but not discussion.
So I would, then I will make my comment on the, Dave was wrong, okay. On the Berry County property, once you lose that 18 mills for the school district in Hastings, because you're selling it and you don't want to, you want to sell it to a nonprofit that's tax exempt, does not go for, does not do the best for the community. You're trying to give property away tax exempt, which gives it away forever, not just for a little time. It doesn't matter that you hadn't been collecting taxes, the county owned it. Put it back on the tax rolls. Make it an advantage for the community. I'm not sure why you just want to do it for a nonprofit.
Thank you. Additional public comment? Hearing none, we'll move ahead with our agenda. Oops,
You got somebody.
okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Kristen Harper, 11393 Lakeshore Drive. I just wanted to add to Bob Henley's comment about the drain. I'm hearing opposition of anything moving forward with that. Even the gentleman who spoke for the drain was very clear about how he used to be against it and now is for it because of the small majority that existed at the time. I think that exists again. And just wanted to speak as a second to Bob requesting to have this further investigated as to where the majority lies, that people on the lake need to recognize that this is a natural body of water and there is a cyclical nature to how it will rise and fall without people interfering. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment?
I'm Ray Flint, 11261 Long Point Drive. I just wanted to say that I'm opposed to this as well. Some of the areas, from what I understand, I've only been there a few years, that the lake levels used to be deeper. And if we knock it down to 890 and a half, I mean, we're gonna go back in. Like, I live in the hole in the wall. Who do I go to and say, I can't even get out of my cove? Do I come back and to ask people, hey, I need 200 feet of more docking to get to water to be even able to enjoy the lake? So I think to reduce the water level is not worth it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Run, Sharon, run.
Sharon Zabrowski, Carlton Township. You started January jumping right into things and getting things done. Now we're in May, and someone has stopped the train, and it's slowly creeping backwards. You took the easy issue first, the COA's facility, but now you're using that to make the commissioners look good and to deflect everyone's attention from the tougher issues that you should be working on, as we've seen today. The COA has a building committee that was functioning well until they were told to hold off because a steering committee was being formed. You don't need a steering committee to do what the building committee has already done. Let the COA building committee do their job. Meanwhile, the tougher issues are being kicked down the road again. What happened to the discussion about the compensation commission that was to take place today? Is it the old familiar story? We're waiting on the attorney general. We're waiting on the lawyer, the baker, the candlestick maker. There are 7 other commissioners who could help with getting information and then bring that information back for discussion. But while waiting for that information, why aren't you discussing the future of this commission today? This commission failed our elected officials, and saying they were notified late is an excuse, not a reason. What makes you think they won't let our elected officials down again? You seem to be capable of negotiating contracts with unions, non-union workers, companies, and organizations. Yet, you can't set the pay for elected officials because it's hard. That's just another excuse. We have several elected officials who are close to retirement, whom I'm sure have accrued some vacation time. What's your plan for running this county if they finally had enough abuse and they all decide to take a long vacation or even retire starting, let's say, Friday? Because the way things are going, you're going to need that plan very soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment?
Pat Jameson, South Bowens Mill. I'm here again to ask to deactivate Berry County from the blue zones again. I was up here a couple months ago. You guys said you were gonna have some sort of meeting. Haven't heard nothing. A lot of that kicking the can down the road seems to go on a lot up here. I says, all these wonderful people up here have better concerns than blue zones, but you guys spend a lot of time on blue zones. Commissioner Getty is the Blue Zones Executive Director. Commissioner Jackson was on the Governance Framework Committee, and before you were Commissioner, Mr. Hatfield, you were also on a steering committee for Blue Zones. Spend a lot of time on Blue Zones when we have bigger issues. I said, I created my own Facebook page because I'm not allowed on the Activate Berry County Blue Zones page, just for simply asking them to deactivate it. So I started my own. I did a poll on there. If you want Berry County to be a blue zones, that come up 83 no's to 64 yeses. That was on a page I just started. Overwhelming, 55, 56%, pretty good majority, don't want blue zones. And I'm just getting started. I'm gonna go around to each township and see what they want. And then I'm gonna start heading up the farmers in the area because there's no cow's milk, no dairy in blue zones. That comes right from Dan Buettner, the guy that started blue zones in the year 2005, 2008. This is all new concept. It's policy-based, and you guys are the policymakers in Berry County. That is concerning.
Thank you. Additional public comment? Hearing none, we will move ahead with our agenda. Good morning, Commissioner Dahl. Good morning, Doug. Good morning.
Jim Dahl, Berry County Drain Commission. I'm passing around the packet. I like everybody to have a nice hard copy, so if their computer crashes during the discussion, we ain't got to worry about it. Let me give you a little background. Crystal Lake Dam, there's 2 dams down there. It was set up in the 60s. And they have the lake itself, and they have a sediment pond upstream. In the 2000s, Tom Doyle helped them. Their sediment pond dam blew out. There was quite a bit of sediment come out of the sediment pond and go down the creek. They made somewhat of an attempt to clean it out. Part of that sediment still gets into the lake. The sediment pond itself, Tom got the dam, the embankment rebuilt, and the sediment pond is now full. So 3 years ago, we got a little permit to take 600 yards of sediment out of the sediment pond. There's a lot of sediment that comes upstream. It's not a county drain, there's erosion, can't do anything about it. So we got a permit, we dug out 3 of the 600 yards, and within a year, that was all back. So the people came to us, Mary Chamberlain, Stephanie Murphy, they're the association president, and said, hey, we want to get the sediment cleaned out. We want to get the creek cleaned out. Chad Mancarelli is the engineer on it. We met with him a couple times and said, okay, you're talking big money. You could be $300,000 or $400,000 to take 12,000 yards of sediment out. We proposed the idea, let's get through a permit, which is no easy task with DEQ Eagle. Get me better than 60% of the people that sign, and we will spend up to $30,000 to get all the engineering and all the whatever we got to do and get through a permit. And they said, okay, that sounds good. I said, once we get the permit, then we can get bids to see what the actual cost of the project would be. We'll bring that back to you, and you guys can decide if you want to move forward with it, hold on to it, pay off the $30,000 or whatever we have into it. We'll put it back to the people to decide. It's a small district. I think there's 45 properties, 50 properties, and you start looking at $300,000 or $400,000. That's a good chunk for them. If we get our permit, that will be good for 5 years. That gives them a little time to think about what they want to do. All of them seem to be on board with just getting it done, but we're trying to take a little smaller baby steps here. But the first thing is we got to spend, it'll be over $10,000 to get through a permit. I don't know if it'll be $30,000, but it'll be definitely over $10,000. So to follow the law, we need a resolution to exceed the $10,000. So that's where we are. This is Doug Kelly, our lawyer, if nobody remembers him.
How many residents are involved in this
I
district?
think there's about 40 or 45 properties.
40 or 45 properties that would potentially be divvying up about 400,000. Okay.
To be clear, I think this initial ask is just to get through the permitting process. And then,
I'm
if
sorry, I
it's not
didn't hear,
permittable,
I
then we
didn't
have
hear
to
that
vote.
statement. Could you say that again? I couldn't hear you.
To be clear, this initial resolution is to exceed $10,000, but just to get through the Eagle, State of Michigan permitting process, which is, time consuming, and you gotta, I don't know what the estimate of cost on that is, but it's probably.
Up to 30,000.
Okay.
Okay, so this isn't the final action. This is for the permitting process only. Will this come back before the board, or is this something that will be, you'll have a meeting with the people on the lake once it's set up? Okay.
Yeah, if and when we get an Eagle permit, which is probably a year, 2, 3 years down the road before we get it, then we'll have to come back for another resolution. We put in here up to 30,000. That way, you know, if the people, that way we don't have it all the way to the end, so.
Mr. Chair, could I ask for, is this on?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. When I read the resolution, I thought it said to exceed $10,000, which means $20 million exceeds $10,000. Now, on the signatures, when you gather the signatures represent property owners with the understanding that they're spending up to $30,000. That's not a limit on the resolution. Why don't you have the resolution say up to $30,000?
There's certainly nothing preventing us from doing that, if that would provide you with some comfort or
It would.
whatever, but the law simply, we just generally cite the statute and just drop it into the resolution. It just says, if you're gonna spend more than $10,000, you need approval by the County Board of Commissioners. Good question, I think, and I have no problem doing that, putting some not to exceed number in there.
Is the county gonna be reimbursed for up to the 30,000?
The county?
Yeah,
The county pays nothing on this.
okay.
In a lake level acts, unless there's an agreement with the counties don't pay anything on us, nor do townships. They can buy agreement if they're feeling froggy.
So this is all up taxpayers?
That's 100% on people.
Correction on the number of residents.
There are 65 lots. 2 of those lots are for access for the people on the back side of the road.
65.
So there's way more people.
Well, I was just thinking, like Jody Adams has 2 of the properties, and a number of people have 2 or 3 or 4
But we're
properties.
billed according to how many lots we
Right.
have.
Correct.
Okay. Additional questions from commissioners? Okay, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners adoption of Resolution 23-13, a resolution authorizing expenditures for the maintenance and repair of the lake level project for Crystal Lake not to exceed $30,000.
Is that sufficient, 30,000?
Yeah.
Okay,
Chad said it'd be under 30,000, and that's what we told the people.
I misunderstood.
Yeah.
So moved, Oster.
Motion by Doster, is there support?
Second.
Support by Tunison. Motion by Doster, support by Tunison to recommend to the Board of Commissioners adoption of the Resolution 23-13, resolution authorizing expenditures for the maintenance and repair of the lake level project for Crystal Lake not to exceed $30,000. Further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
Make sure you guys got plenty of paperwork. We included did you get your vote on?
Yeah.
Okay. I was thinking about this. Okay. On the Pine Lake project, I included a copy of the permit, and I'm sending around a hard copy of it, because the DEQ, for us to be able to pump down to the gravel pit, which we were hoping to do in April, but we haven't got it done yet because we haven't got the irrevocable line of credit from the bank. On page 6, the permittee shall submit a surety bond or letter of credit, which is an irrevocable line of credit, same thing we did on Little Thornapple, in the amount of $150,000. When we talked to Rob Raines, he said, what's it?
At High Point Bank.
Yeah, sorry. Rob Raines at High Point Bank. He said he would be comfortable if we had a full faith and credit for the bond. His point being that the DEQ at any time can call on that surety bond if they see some wetland impact. And he wants to make sure that not only is there the district, but the county is making sure that they'll get paid back. If a project does not go forward, he wants to make sure that they will get paid back if there's any blowback from DEQ. We had a wetland delineation done back in, I believe, 2020 to establish where DEQ required us to review all the wetlands, anything within 500 feet of the lake. And they, that was when the lake was at 894.4. Since then, the lake has, well, last summer it was really stable at 892.6. And I went back to Jason Coombs. I said, I'm fine with the monitoring, but I want a new delineation of the wetlands because it's been down for a couple of years from the high point, and I don't want to get dinged because the wetlands have changed because of that. He agreed to it, but he still wants his surety bond. So.
Is that what, reading through the details of the permit, it talked about eliminating like 139 acres of wetlands or something like that? There was something in there, and that was kind of confusing to read through it. But that was assuming that the lake level stays at that 890.5.
No, I don't believe we did anything to do with the 890.5. We delineated for when it was 894.4, which is 4 feet higher than the quote-unquote normal level set by the courts. And if you read the permit, for a point of clarification for a lot of people that are confused, I don't know, when you get into permitting, it gets, a lot of people don't understand how it works. We have a court order that says a normal level of 890.5 with seasonal variations. The engineer's argument, when you look at the permit, our outlet tube starts at 890.5. A lot of people mistook that we were gonna take the lake down to 890.5. But if you look at our structure, we can hold that lake level up to, I believe it's 893. And we sent out a survey last fall and we talked to the commissioners about going back to the courts and resetting that lake level. Very, very, very few of the people, there are some that said yes, they like 890.5. But if we were to set a lake level at a structure at 890.5 with 6 inches of seasonal evaporation, we'd end up turning the pump on every summer. So our belief is if we could get a structure at 892, I'm pushing the engineers to 892.5, then we could have a 1 foot elevation change from evaporation in the summer and never have to mess with a pump. So, but that, again, is, a court would have to decide if it was reasonable to raise that court, or that lake level.
That's the legal lake level you're talking about?
Yes, yes.
And in the big scope of things, what you're talking about now is basically a surety required by Eagle. You want to pump into the gravel pit to test to see if it's a potential solution.
Exactly.
Can I make a couple comments on this
Sure.
request from Eagle? Okay, this request from Eagle is not unusual. It happens a lot. As some of you may know, I represent drain commissioners throughout the state. We've seen this before. I think this, we have gone ahead and just got the letter of credit through the drain commissioner's office, but now I think it's this regional bank issue that's going on nationwide with the Silicon Valley Bank failure, that they want the county's full faith and credit. That said, the $150,000 is just that, as a letter of credit. I've done dozens of these and I've never seen it drawn on. Doesn't mean it won't be, there's no warranty on that, but it's, if the work is done appropriately, no damage to the wetland, then, except for the little thorn apple, but that was after the fact anyway, and they didn't draw on that either. So, it's not like a borrowing. But it is, it could be, I mean, you know, it's just that, a letter of credit in the event something goes sideways.
So this is not a drawing, it's not an additional expense for residents of Pine Lake, it's just something required by Eagle at this point.
They will not issue the permit without that in place.
It will not issue the
There
permit.
is an expense with it, it's $1,000 a year for the irrevocable line of credit, and it's renewable, because this has to be 3 years. So Rob said he will do a 1 year with renewable, so that if, say a year from now, say we pump to the gravel pit and it doesn't work, and the commissioners say, forget it, don't waste any more, put any more time into this, we're paid for 1 year, and we don't have to do the other 2 years.
Okay.
And if this is approved and the permit is issued, we will have to come back before you if we want to modify the lake level, because you'll have to approve that before a court action can be started too. And then the court will set the lake level. So,
Okay.
high, low, normal, I've seen lots of variations.
So today's request is for a letter of credit.
Yeah, that's it.
It's not for approval of a final project, it's not for approval of a drain, it's not for approval of a legal lake level. This is to explore the possibility of establishing a drain for Pine Lake. In order, if it goes through to that point and this is successful, then it would require a public hearing where everybody would have a chance to have input. Is that correct?
There's, yes, well, at the court hearing.
There's a lot of steps between there. If this proves out the way we expect it, we pump to the gravel pit for 2 weeks, we don't have any adverse effects, the lake, if the ground infiltrates like we're anticipating, then we'll still have to go out for bids. We gotta get engineered design, we have to get bids and all that stuff, and then we have the public hearing, correct?
Yes.
Once we figure out what the assessments are. Once we go through that, then we come back to the commissioner and say, okay, to do something, it's gonna cost X number of dollars. Do the commissioners see that it's feasible to do it? Then they vote yes, proceed with the project, and at that point, set the assessment roll, which Mr. DeVries mentioned. We had 530 properties on the old roll from '69. Looking through the records, in the '90s, the court reset the district, but never reset the percentages. So therefore, the new properties that got added got a zero balance, which is really funky, because I don't think I've ever seen that. But it happens.
Well, one of the things we continue to get letters and emails on from concerned residents of Pine Lake is that you're gonna drain the lake.
Correct.
And if I'm understanding the process, what you're saying is, based on where the legal lake level is established now, the goal is to actually raise the lake level, similar to what the 1994 report talked about, which was around that 892, 892.5. So you're actually talking about creating a lake level that will put more water in the lake, keep more water in the lake, versus now it can go down to 890 or below. Is that correct?
Right, that's been the whole premise of the project to begin with, is in the '90s, they didn't want people flooded out. So they asked to raise the normal level up to 892 and make some kind of an outlet to control it so you don't get to 894, 894 and a half or any of that. Like this summer. Last summer was a great summer. The lake stabilized at 892.6. Well, actually, it was 892.5, and into the fall, by the time we got our gauges in, it had actually went up an inch. Don't know why, because it should have been going down with evaporation. This winter, even though we didn't have a big runoff or anything else, the lake went up to 893.5 or 893.6, and we had people starting to get water issues. If we would have got spring rains like we used to, well, last year even, in late April, early May, then we could have hit that 894 again. It's a control structure, and I don't know how. I believe it's because we're the drain office, so people assume we want to put in a drain, but it's basically a lake structure. And in the permit, it's drawn as a lake structure.
Okay.
How many people are normally affected if we were to get this up to above 894?
We don't have an exact count of it.
Approximate, 25, 30, 40,
100,
100?
100. No way. Okay. Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Anyway,
Additional question?
I have,
Go ahead, Doug.
I do.
There's a lot of,
Let me go first if I could.
somebody had a question? Okay.
Okay.
Can I be
Commissioner
recognized?
Doster.
Thank you. Okay, there's a number of things that I don't think are necessarily correct. Is there a high leak level set on this lake?
no.
Under 307, this act that you're coming, don't you have to have a high lake level set in order to drain it lower than that?
This is normal lake level or with, the words with seasonal adjustments is what the statute says.
And
Which
the number that
a
you're
lot of times
using,
says
though,
high
that-
lake level.
yeah, and the lake level that you keep referring to, this 890.5, it was set as a low lake level.
No.
Yes, it was. Every single person on Pine Lake will tell you that that's what it is. You are the only person that believes that you can that you have the authority to drain down to that level when that was. There's 18 pages of court order explaining how that is the low lake level for the pumps to pump up to. Before you go one iota further and spend any more money on this, you need to set a high lake level.
Does that have to go to the court, so does
It
it,
would.
Commissioner Doster?
But there's two ways to do that. Correct me if I'm wrong. A petition from the people.
Correct.
Or this board can act on its own volition, which would be incredibly stupid to do when this thing is so divided. This thing, Fisher even references this in his court opinion, that there are avenues for going forward with setting a lake level, and that needs to be done before anything else has occurred. You don't seem to remember who won and who lost that suit. Did you not just listen to Dave Tripp, who was present as one of the attorneys? There is only a lower lake level set.
I would say,
Did you read the 96?
I have read it all, yes, back from the 60s on forward. I was a county commissioner during this time. I remember this case. I spoke to Judge Fisher on this. I spoke to Bob Schaefer, the drain commissioner, multiple times. And then after that, I was a deputy supervisor at Prairieville. I was the supervisor of Prairieville. I was the administrator of the Sewer and Water Authority. I have been involved with this case for decades. I have some idea as to what the intention was of this suit. And you don't. You do not have it correct.
I will.
And that needs to be corrected before we go any further. The resolution that we passed, that this board passed, I didn't pass it, the 1912 resolution that I brought up in January, that is based on a lie. That is based that there is a high water level set by the court. That resolution should be rescinded. That resolution came before this board under improper procedure. I made an objection to it. Under our board rules, I am entitled to a hearing on that before we do anything further on this Pine Lake project. I would move to deny the request to have this forwarded.
Let's see if there are additional questions from commissioners before we take up that.
For Mr. Dell, what is the cost of this experimental pumping to that gravel pit? What is the homeowner of that gravel pit getting out of this, and how much is he charging us?
At this point, he hasn't charged us anything. He agreed to do it to see if it works.
And if it works, how much
Then
is
we
that
will-
piece
then-
of property gonna cost?
Then we will negotiate with Dave Payne.
Well, I've heard as much as $1.2 million for this piece of property.
I've heard a lot of things.
No.
What's that?
I heard it was $1.2 million is what the homeowners asking for that 6-acre gravel pit.
And I've heard the same rumors.
Okay, would you be willing to pay $1.2 million for a 6-acre dump gravel?
The discussion's not relevant at this point until we get to that, so.
Could I respond to that
There is,
as a
yeah.
question? So for clarity, you're asking for money to do this project on a parcel of property, which is located in a different county, of which you don't have any sort of option?
Not at this point.
That seems totally ridiculous. So you go forward and you claim that somehow this is a success, because of course it's going to be some sort of success. The water is going to go somewhere. The water is going to go most likely right back into the lake. And I don't see that there's any way that you can tell that it doesn't. This gravel pit is relatively close to the lake and it's on a much higher elevation. This gravel pit is also used currently by the road commission as a drain. Has that been taken into account? Other people bring all their fill from their probably contaminated fill from their homes, being their foundations, to be deposited in this gravel pit. This gravel pit does not have sides on all sides. And it's a very small area. There is just no way logically that this thing could possibly be the answer to this. And how many projects, how many plans have you had so far now? You originally wanted to go across the street and bore through this mountain. Let's see, then you wanted to go up Pine Lake Road. Then you went to this gravel pit, but then you kind of abandoned that plan for some reason because the man apparently wanted so much money. Then you wanted to go to the park across the street. And is there Dave Eddy's gravel pit thrown into the mix here as an option as well, which would be even closer?
Dave Eddy's permit?
Yes.
I don't know what gravel pit Ken Eddy has.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so now you've returned to this plan, of which you don't have an option. Apparently, you don't have an assessment role all this time. You haven't figured out who you were going to charge. The trustee of Prairieville Township said that there was more than 100 errors from the last time that you tried to assess this. This thing is not ripe to go anywhere. And you need to start with a legal lake level on this thing in order to see, and then look to see whether, you would find out whether people were for this or not.
Commissioner Doster, question.
Yeah.
Are you saying that you think we need to get the lake level first?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
The legal lake level?
Yes.
Okay.
Which would require eventually a court order.
Makes sense.
Yes.
That makes sense.
That's what we asked for in December.
All of these questions about the hydrology, geology, hydrogeology, testimony, where the water's going, whether it will come back or not, will be part of the court action. We're happy to share whatever studies we have, or Mr. Tripp represents the Associates of Fine Lawyer. If he's got information, you're welcome to look at that too. But ultimately, it's the court that has to sort that out and say, and if there's testimony that says the water, like hypothetically, and I don't know if this is true, the water just comes right back, the court sort of works that out. So this is not, this lake level is not gonna work. Okay, there's the opportunity for everybody to provide testimony and to address those concerns. To me, I mean, it's fine if it goes forward. I feel there's a lot of division about this project, starting to get the sense of that. But, we're trying to follow the procedures, and just if it is the Board of Commissioners, yeah, you're right. We either get 2/3 of the signatures, people abutting the lake, or the board on its own motion could start the court process. So all this, I don't think we're going to spend a lot of money on, doing things until we get, a court order. But the one thing that is a prerequisite to doing all of that is getting an Eagle permit, because without the Eagle permit, none of the other stuff will happen.
So you can get a court order without the Eagle permit.
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, I don't know if
That's
that
what
is
I would
wise
recommend
use.
doing first.
You feel that's the proper procedure?
Yes, I would set this aside, let them get their court order. We'll find out where people lay on the thing. And if it,
You're preferring that this board not be involved in that decision to get a legal lake level. You're talking about.
correct, it should be a petition process.
If
That's the
that's
wa-
the way you want to go, that's fine, but there will be significant sunk costs and unknown whether we'll get the permit to do it. But it's certainly your option to do that.
I think Commissioner Doster, when he says we need to know what we're dealing with on a lake level, I have no problem with that. As far as 892.5 or whatever
Yeah, it'd be
you
great
think,
by us.
or,
I mean, we would love to have the court's guidance on a lake level, because at this point, and I understand Mr. Doster has read it different than I have.
All goes to the drain.
What I read in Judge Fisher's, his signature is there is a low level of 890 and a normal level with precipitation of 890.5.
but obviously 890 is too low, right?
890.5 is a normal level within 6 inches of when that pump would have to be turned on.
Yeah, it makes no sense to have to turn a pump on if we don't have to turn a pump on, right?
At 890 you do.
Yeah, right, yeah.
890.5, they pushed the drain commissioner in the past to turn it on at 890.5, and they said at the time, you can't till 890, but I don't think, there are a few that have said that they would love to keep 890.5.
Well, I've been on that lake numerous times, and that would be too low for getting through those channels.
I 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
Okay. The chair would entertain a motion to table the further discussion on the resolution for full faith and credit on Pine Lake till a
So-
further date, until we determine which direction we want to go with this.
So moved, Doster.
Second call.
Motion by Doster, support by Calton, to table the resolution for full faith and credit for Pine Lake. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we will revisit this.
We are a delegated authority, and you guys are the overseeing authority. What guidance do you give us?
I'd like to have a conversation with Commissioner Doster. Maybe we need to get together and discuss some of his points. And be sure legally, we are in good standing with what it is, with where we need to be with this, establishing a legal lake level. I see the petition process probably going forward as a good option to see where the residents of Pine Lake feel that should be. And reading through the study of 94, it seems like 892 to 892.5 is a legitimate legal lake level that allows the lake to be usable by all residents. It raises the water level without creating flooding.
Yep.
Is that correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
890, well, like I say, 892.6 last summer, we didn't have any major complaints.
But the issue with regulating 892.5 is also having a way to control that at some point.
Yeah.
So the legal lake level may be the first step, but it's not the last step in being able to control that.
Correct.
Right. You'd have to have a drain of some sort.
So the gravel pit study still comes into play at some point in the future.
Correct.
Okay?
Just for a little clarification, the gravel pit is 15 feet below the lake. We bored down, I think it's 30 feet, and it's dry. According to our monitoring wells between Shelf Lake and Pine Lake and Marsh Road, we believe the underground water flows southwest. That's why we were looking at that gravel pit, because we don't want it coming back to the lake.
Is 6 acres enough, Jim? Area, is 6 acres enough area?
According to the engineers, when we did the infiltration test, they said it would take the water. But I can't guarantee that until we do pumping down there. It's theory until it's proven, so, but, thank you. Appreciate
Okay.
it.
Good information, good discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
The board is going to recess for 7 to 10 minutes.
Good morning. All right, so I'm here today to present to you the L49 tax rate request for the summer levy. Without this form, we cannot ask the local treasurers from each township to collect revenue for Berry County, so it's an important form. I also included the millage reduction fraction computations for all the townships, just to show that there was no millage reduction fractions this year applied. That's all I have.
Questions for commissioners? Hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the 2023 L-4029 tax rate request for levy of summer property taxes and authorize the chairperson to sign it.
So moved.
Motion by Getty, support by Hatfield, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the 2023 L-4029 tax rate request for levy of the summer property taxes and authorize the chairperson to sign it. Additional discussion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, Messiah. Sorry for the wait.
That's okay.
Is Jim Yarger here?
He is.
There he is. I didn't see you hiding back there. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning.
Was hiding, Chairman.
Bob found me, though. Good morning, everybody. Finally, after I think 3 years, and I don't think I'm exaggerating by much, if any, the hazard mitigation plan has been approved by FEMA. So I'm here to ask for approval by this board by resolution so that, for one, we can move forward. If you have to have the hazard mitigation plan in order to receive Indy grant from FEMA for mitigation. So this will be the first step. I'll have to go to all the other jurisdictions and see if they want to sign on or not. But,
When you say other jurisdictions?
Villages, the city, and the townships.
Okay.
They all signed on to it the last time.
And hazard mitigation plan also includes floods.
Yep.
Is there an opportunity for us to go to FEMA and request funds for things like Crooked Lake flooding, Pine Lake flooding, anything like that, or is this going forward?
There's a possibility. Those things seem to ebb and flow. What's the irritating thing for me is it seems like I'm the emergency managers are the last ones to know that they released funds for grants. So you almost have full-time be checking with them to see if there's any funding available. So.
Okay, but this is what we had put together at a cost of like $35,000 that we approved three some years ago, 2.5, 3 years ago?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So once we adopt this, and I get the final, there's one more step with FEMA. After we've adopted it and those that are gonna sign on to it, then FEMA says, okay, we're good to go and we can recoup our money.
Okay, when was the last time, prior to this one, when was the last time we had to update the hazard mitigation?
2005, I think.
So it was due,
Yeah,
overdue.
Yeah, but they do it in such a manner, you have to have grant funding to do it. Unless you have lots of money, you don't know what to do with it.
Okay, and this is countywide?
Yep.
Okay, questions from commissioners? Okay, hearing none. The chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners adoption of Resolution 23-11, a resolution to adopt the 2023 Berry County Hazard Mitigation Plan and authorize the chairperson and emergency management coordinator to sign it.
So moved.
Motion by Colleton, support by Hatfield, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners adoption of Resolution 23-11, resolution to adopt the 2023 Berry County Hazard Mitigation Plan and authorize the chairperson and emergency manager coordinator to sign it. Additional discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. Jason. Welcome back. That was a good presentation last week. I hope it's still fresh in all of our minds, so.
Well, I cannot do as good of a job as the
I cannot do as good as job as they did, so.
We were gonna ask you to recreate that whole thing again, so, you know, but.
I can give you a better one. I can give you the jump drive and you can watch the hour and a half.
There you go. Hour and a half, okay. Wonderful. So the request is for the approval of the FARO 3D laser scanner at a cost of $62,812.18, paid for the capital replacement fund. Commissioners, you saw the demonstration last week, had a chance to answer all the questions and go through the process like that. Do you have any questions?
I'd like to ask Julie, do you think this will really benefit you and your department as far as showing actual people when they come to court? The jury might be able to actually recreate, you can recreate the whole process.
Yes, Julie Nackber Pratt, Berry County Prosecutor, and I absolutely support it, and that's why I'm here with everybody today. We've all talked about this, but my Assistant Prosecutor Jessica Payne and I attended the demonstration, and we did that partly Jessica too, because she and Chris and Josh try the great part of our cases. And what we thought was just very valuable about it is it gives us a much greater and in-depth view of what happens on a crime scene, and it's as close to real time as we can get. Photos are amazing. I mean, they really are, but they're not as 3D as what this is.
Yeah.
And the amount of points they can scan, I was telling someone that they can give you an instant measurement, which helps us, because it's not just it's the prosecutor's burden to prove a case, but the defense has the right to poke holes in it if they want to. And to me, this would give us an instantaneous answer, you know, in court in front of a jury. And it may or may not, I mean, we don't have jury views very often. They're extremely rare, jury views of a scene. But to me, this would alleviate that. But I also want to put a plug in for one of the very important things that this does. It can scan buildings, and so that can become invaluable to this community. I'd love to sit here and tell you we will never have a disaster here, but I can't say that anymore. And so if we do, we want all the police departments to be as prepared as they can possibly be. And from what we understand, again, that can be instantaneous even when they're headed to the scene. So I'm in favor of it. I think it's amazing. Scott has worked hard on learning his expertise in crash reconstruction anyway. And he's done a great job of talking to us, going to the training. So I'm very supportive of it. And by Scott, I mean Sergeant Ware.
Thank you.
You can't take it with you. Is there going to be any ongoing cost to FARO? Yearly renewals, fees?
There is a yearly maintenance fee. I don't know what that cost is.
We'll have time to look that up between now and next week, though, to see.
Yes, we will.
Additional questions from commissioners?
Is this going to be coming out of the sheriff's department's budget?
We're asking for it to come out of the capital replacement fund, yes. So here's also the other thing is, it comes with a warranty, if that makes any sense. But you also can, if so need be, we can add 3, 4, or 5 years upon the other warranty that comes originally with it. But that's not what we're concerned right now with, is we're trying to really get something that we can put in place and we can start using that will actually help us and benefit us as a law enforcement agency, as well as other agencies if they request our assistance. We're available, as well as help with the prosecutor's office in crimes and the legality issues, as well as possibly try to get the schools implemented so we can get their 3D, and if we, God forbid, have a disaster or an issue at any of the schools. And then other agencies would help out with their FAROs and with him, what's it, his name? Paul. Paul would help us out because he lives right in Wayland and help set that up too also. To
Okay.
those buildings.
How quickly can you guys start training with this?
It'd be as soon as we get it. The lead time is 6 to 12 weeks from purchase to delivery, and then it's just a matter of setting up the training right after that. So if we make the purchase and we have a estimated time when it's going to arrive based on tracking number, then we can set that class up so we can do the class within a couple weeks of having the actual instrument.
And we can put up to 6 people to get trained in it as well, to be certified basically, but we'll also be allowed to have the prosecutors have someone there if they wish to go through the training, but not be trained as a certified person.
Awesome. Thank you. Additional questions?
Just
Commissioner Campbell.
mostly a comment, Mr. Chairman. I did attend the Titan Center demonstration, considerably more in-depth than what took place here because of time allotments. There was lots of comparison to what this would be replacing. It's just night and day what this equipment is going to replace, not to mention, as I understand it, saving considerably man-hours, and we all know how short we are with man-hours anymore. So, looked like a good deal.
And my apologies, but in the agenda, I did have that in a couple of the paragraphs because it will save us money and time at the same time, plus the liability with being on the scene longer and possibility of those type of things. But it'll definitely save us time and money and be much more accurate. And we didn't put this in the capital budget this last year because obviously we have to have that in by June. And we really didn't have this even in our sites at that time, this repair, as well as we thought maybe hopefully the total station, we were trying to figure out if we could repair it or not, which is just not really feasible or reasonable.
Okay. Additional questions? Hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to purchase the FARO 3D laser scanner at a cost of $62,812.18 with funds to be paid for from the Capital Replacement Fund.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Smelker, support by Getty, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to purchase the FARO 3D laser scanner at a cost of $62,812.18 with funds to be paid for from the Capital Replacement Fund. Additional discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. Good luck with that. We expect some good reports when this thing is in motion, and hopefully it'll be using none of us as samples. Purchase a ballistic resistant vest.
Unfortunately, if I would have known it could have been taken care of in the capital budget last year, I would have done it. I didn't know that we were actually going to have to replace 14 this year. And obviously, it's every 5 years, basically what the liability is for the warranty. Obviously, we know they last longer than that, but for liability purposes, the company says 5 years. So I will actually put it in this coming year's capital budget for the ones that we have to do for next year and 2025. So 24 and 25, so we're doing 14 this year, or that's what we're requesting is 14. To recommend the Board of Commissioners approval of purchase of 14 replacement ballistic resistant vests for the Uniform Services Divisions and Corrections Division of the Berry County Sheriff's Office for a total price of $12,965 with the funds being paid from capital replacement funds. So here's the kicker. We requested the Sheriff's Office authorize the purchase of 14 Armor Express Threat Level 2 ballistic vests, and external carriers are due to expire September 2023. Each vest used by our deputies have 5 years of use of recommendation. Due to their age, it is now time to replace 14 of those vests. The current waiting period to fill an order is 3 months. That's the reason we're trying to get this taken care of at this time. Quote, the price of the vest is $12,965, includes shipping. The particular model of the vest qualifies for partial reimbursement through the United States Department of Justice, Office of Justice Program, the OJP, and the Bulletproof Vest Partnership, BVP, grant, which may reimburse the county up to 44% of the associated cost purchase of a total of $5,667. In conjunction with the purchase of the vest, the Berry County Sheriff's Office has requested a grant from the Office of Justice Program, Bulletproof Vest Program, which has been used the Berry County Sheriff's Office in the past, partial reimbursement for the purchase of vests. The VVP grant requires purchase of the vest before submitting to the 2023 grant reimbursement. Of the $12,965 requested, Berry County is currently eligible to receive up to $5,667 from this program. This amount is based on the application that was completed on May 8th, 2023 by me with BVP website. In 2022, the vest purchases by the Berry County Sheriff's Office has applied and been qualified to receive the $3,448.50. And that was based on a purchase of $7,838 approximately last year of what the vests that we needed last year. So
Okay.
that's what we're looking at. Underlying, if you look at the other pertinent information, it tells you what the vests are. And what we're trying to do is we're through CMP distributors, due to the fact that that's what we purchased before. We're trying to make us look uniformity so everybody has the same vest.
Okay.
And I can read that if you wish me to.
What do you do with the expired vest?
What's that?
What do you do, what happens to the expired vest?
Well, we do keep them, and they sometimes will still use them for if we have some people that do ride-alongs, even though we don't have to provide them anything when they do ride-alongs or interns. But to give them a better chance, obviously we know they're still capable of being used, but liability-wise, that, and then sometimes we also use them for, some of our practices and that type of thing.
Somebody wears them and you practice on them?
No. That's not the case.
Volunteers, yeah.
Although back
You
in the
taking
old days,
volunteers?
when they first came through, when the vests first came out, the owner actually did get shot with them when they were on, back in the old days. You can actually see some of those videos.
If anybody wants to sign up for that, you can.
How big of a round will they stop, Jason? I mean,
I don't have the exact amount, and I'd rather not.
I'm just saying, if somebody shot a 223, will they stop that? Somebody was shooting at you guys.
This is what, I don't have that exact information.
I just
what
thought
this
maybe you
one does,
guys knew that, that's all.
But it's been looked into, and that's what our people that deem necessary that would be. But yes, some still had the old shock plates, and they changed and did the design and that type of thing.
Good, okay.
But now they're soft plates versus the metal or the hard plates, which
Yep.
would ricochet back in the 80s.
Okay. Additional questions from commissioners?
It really has no pertinence, but how much does one of them weigh? They say it costs $85 to ship it, but,
Well, that's for the total.
yeah, but.
Or they're pretty heavy. These are the external vests. I actually only wore one in Nashville when I was a chief, so that was the first time I was able to wear an external versus an internal. And honestly, the best part about the external vest is you can actually take them off when you're sitting in the report room to do your reports and stuff. You get the weight bearing off from you versus the one inside. You'd either have to take your shirt off first and then take your internal vest off. And but this works much better, and plus you can carry other things on it, and the gun can be here versus on the internal you always are having it on your hip. And I'm not a doctor, and I'm not going to try to play one here, but there's some people that have issues with a gun on their hip, and it causes issues with sciatic nerve and hips, and so there's a lot, and they can carry all their other items up here, including their taser, handcuffs, and that.
They just look heavy to me.
They're much more comfortable, I think, personally. Go ahead. Sure.
Since we went to the external, we haven't had one back problem. And one time we had 3 people out with back problems. That's quite a strain on our office. And we had one of our deputies, she's now retired now, but she was kind of our poster child for it, if you want to look at it that way. And after 2 weeks of wearing the vest, she called me up and she says, first time I've been able to work without having to take Motrin or something at the end of the work and being in tears because my back hurt so bad. So we decided to go with everybody, and we haven't had any back problems since.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Commissioner Colton?
Chiropractor
Oh.
approved.
Chiropractor approved. There we go. Okay. Additional questions? The chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to purchase 14 replacement ballistic resistant vests for the Uniform Service Division and Corrections Division of the Berry County Sheriff's Office for a total price of $12,965 with funds to be paid from the Capital Replacement Fund.
So move.
Motion by Tunison, support by Smelker, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to purchase 14 replacement ballistic resistant vests for the Uniform Services Division and Corrections Division of the Berry County Sheriff's Office for a total price of $12,965, with funds to be paid for from the Capital Replacement Fund. Additional discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you.
Am I correct in assuming that your deputy is modeling the, what we're buying?
Similar. Theirs is a little different than ours, so this is one of our posse members, which they have different, external vests than ours.
They get the used vest?
But actually.
I'm kidding.
Sergeant Ware was in here, and that's the vest that basically it models, but he's probably gone now, so.
Okay. Awesome. Moving on, contract for LexisNexis program.
Lieutenant Stevens, Tim Stevens will also be here, because he's been dealing with One Solution or Zerker, and as well as OSSI, and if we need some assistance from Dave Schinaber, he's here also to reference some of the issues.
Okay. If you want to go into some detail or give us an explanation on LexisNexis.
So what we're requesting is for the board to approve the center, to enter into a contract with LexisNexis CopLogic Solutions, Inc. for crash reports and e-citations for the amount of $20,636, with the funds to be paid from the general fund budget for the Sheriff's Office. It is requested that the Berry County Board of Commissioners authorize the purchase of LexisNexis CopLogic Solutions and software program. This would ultimately take place of the previously approved contract portion of BP2 crash report system and e-citations with Central Square Zerker, which they cannot provide. If we go down, and obviously the funding required also, it says no, but there's a asterisk, which is sufficient funds budgeted for the service contracts to cover this cost. Annual support and maintenance in the future is anticipated $143 per unit, which we have 22 units approximately at this time, which would be $3,146 annually we'd have to pay for this service contract. Pertinent information is Central Square previously sold us a product they did not have developed. The amount which would have originally been paid for the crash and e-citations each year with Central Square was actually more than LexisNexis CopLogic Inc., which comes in significant lower price. LexisNexis provides all of the up-to-date updates when the state laws change. Unlike OSSI, One Solutions, our office had to implement any and all codes and law changes. At this time, we have not been able to find any other companies who can provide both programs, crash reports, and e-citations other than LexisNexis. We are unable to continue any longer with our old system, OSSI One Solutions, due to the fact that any new deputy cannot be added to SSI, according to IT coordinator David Schinaber. OSSI cannot provide the needed software, and LexisNexis can. What happened was, and this was before Lieutenant Stevens and I were involved, basically 4 years ago with Zerker, our One Solutions, they offered us a contract which included the BP2 portion with crash reports and e-citations, which they didn't even have made or didn't even exist with them. Our attorney is also involved in this situation, so we're still working with that. We're working on, I'm gonna let him tell you because I don't wanna say it wrong, but he's been with the difference with One Solution versus what we have right now. But for price-wise, we're still in I'll let you go ahead.
So the initial contract, the approval for it, total out $25,280 for the portion of the contract that would relate to VP2, which would control our e-citations and e-crash. So the comparable for that was the LexisNexis came in under what was approved for the portion of the report system that would have covered those two items. So it's actually coming in at
roughly 20,000 or 5,000
5,000
less
less.
Okay.
So,
for the contract.
And just for clarity, this LexisNexis, this is software that issues citations and software that you use to issue citations in an event of a crash where there is a citation, court citations?
so it'll do, any crash that we take would be entered in this system. So they're two separate portions in one system. If we go to a traffic crash, there's a section in it that we would submit the crash. All our traffic crashes have to be submitted to the state. Our current system is not, hasn't been since the end of January. We're still working on that, but the citation portion is in the same program but separate. So you can write citations based off of any traffic stop, or if there's one involved with a crash. But any citation that was written would be logged in the citation section. The e-crash section would just do the crash portions, if that makes sense.
Okay, these all done via laptop,
Correct.
printed out, emailed into the state, emailed into the central database then?
And it would be, so our courts are interfaced with LexisNexis already, so they have access to all e-citations that are submitted.
And Mrs. Straub was here earlier, but she had to leave. She also said that everything is working really smooth with LexisNexis because they already received that information with citations and everything through MSP, Michigan State Police. So thus, it works very well with them over there. The crash reports, including CARDIR, any of those type of things that we can, that's how that is. Everything is then implemented and sent to the state of Michigan. And then any insurance company that requests a copy of that crash report, as well as any other individuals, they go through LexisNexis. And we agreed to have them pay us back $5 for every crash report that the LexisNexis has been requested to hand out or disperse. So that we will also get money back that way. The best part is right now, if Zerker or One Solution could do it, even though they said they could and it didn't happen with the crash reports and then the e-citations, we in the background as our deputies that were working diligently trying to get the codes and everything in because they wouldn't do it. LexisNexis, if there's any updates or any new laws or anything else, it's just automatically implemented. And there's several agencies in the state of Michigan, counties, using LexisNexis as well as the e-citations.
Thank you. Questions from commissioners? Sounds like a pretty good system, especially if the courts are already used to using it and it's less expensive, so.
And the one issue is we can't, even the old system, even if we still want to do it, our IT department just cannot put them through updating. It's called updating according. We can't add our three newest deputies, so they can't even do the crash reports or write a citation unless it's handwritten or under someone else's name.
Those three deputies might like the fact they don't have to do reports, so, you know.
No.
Nope. Okay, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to enter into a contract with LexisNexis CopeLogic Solutions, Inc. for crash reports and e-citations for the amount of $20,636, with funds to be paid from the general fund budget for the Sheriff's Office.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Getty, supported by Colleton, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to enter into a contract with LexisNexis CopeLogic Solutions, Inc. for crash reports and e-citations in the amount of $20,636, with funds to be paid for the general fund budget for the Sheriff's Office. Additional discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. And one more item you have with automobiles and boats. Or is that going to be handled?
I mean, I'll sit here.
Okay.
That is it.
For some of you new commissioners, probably for the last 10 to 15 years, I have grown into the used car salesman for the county. And it's just when they have extra cars or boats to sell, they let me know, and I take care of the advertising and making sure the bids are in and such. So formality is that the board to approve of the sale of these surplus vehicles and boats.
Okay. County's having a garage sale on vehicles, it looks like. What do you have, 4 vehicles and 2 boats?
Yes.
Okay.
Just, Mr. Chairman, if I can interrupt for just to be clear, so that folks don't look for an advertisement out there. Regrettably, we got a little over efficient this time in that it was advertised, we have received the bids, and we have them. We just neglected to come to the board to get pre-authorization to dispose of that equipment. So before we open these, we wanted to, we caught that yesterday and wanted to bring this to you. So they have been, the process has been followed. It was advertised for 3 weeks. We do have sealed bids. They have not been opened yet. And we waited, should you decide you did not want to dispose of any of that equipment, we would then destroy the bids or return them. But if you approve this, then we'll open those.
So,
We being myself, I have to own that one.
very efficient, David, very efficient.
Yeah.
Questions from commissioners?
Mr. Chair. So the people that hear about this currently cannot bid on these because the bids have already, the time is actually closed on it. I would say that we should extend the time allotted for people to put bids in. If they're just finding out about this for the first time at this meeting, there are a lot of people who watch this live. It seems kind of ridiculous to authorize it when the bidding process is already concluded.
Yeah, and that's on me.
And we certainly could, we have not opened any of the bids at this point. If the board wanted to, we could re-advertise and extend that time frame for submitting bids. That is certainly, we apologize that that we're in this situation, but absolutely that's a doable scenario if that's what the board would like to do.
It was advertised in the reminder for 3 weeks, and I believe in the banner for 2 weeks.
I don't know that it's necessary to re-advertise, just give another week for people who are hearing about it now for the first time to still be able to submit a bid.
Okay. Further discussion?
I have no problem with that. Open it up for another week.
I think that's probably a good idea. Michael, can we hold the bids and allow, if anybody is watching this or anybody hears about this, maybe give it a 7-day extension?
We can. That would be my one question, is to define, Commissioner Doster's went a week to give us a specific date so that if somebody shows up and said, I heard it was a week, what we're defining isn't something different than what so yeah, if you just wanted to say.
May 22nd, next Monday.
Next Monday
Is
at
that-
5 o'clock?
Sure.
The end of the, actually, we're gonna make it 4 PM so that somebody doesn't show up in the 5:01 or something and miss. So 4 PM then on Monday, May.
22nd.
22nd. So if you, Mr. Chairman, make that clear.
Okay.
Is that all right with Mark?
Thank
Are you in agreement with that, Mark?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
I am.
Okay. Okay, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to sell the following surplus automobiles and boats as listed below by sealed bid to the highest bidder, with bids to be received up until May 22nd, 2023 at 4 PM
So
in the
moved.
County Administration Office. Motion by Doster.
Support.
Support by Smelker. To recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to sell the following surplus automobiles and boats as listed below by sealed bid to the highest bidders, with those bids to be received by May 22nd, 2023 by 4 PM. All those in, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. You in agreement with that? Had a.
No.
Okay.
The only question I had was, BOC will come in on Tuesday, the 23rd. So I'm just making sure that when are we gonna open those sealed bids?
We'll open them on the 22nd.
Okay. It hasn't, it's gone through, approved through the COW, just not through the BOC, so I just wanna make sure we're
Oh, I see what you're
on the
saying.
same.
You have a concern with that, Michael?
I do not.
Okay, so we can still approve it at the BOC next week?
No, well,
I'm
what
just-
we would do then is, normally,
Can't we just open the bids following the?
yeah.
Yeah, the meeting on Tuesday.
Yeah, we'll do that.
I just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page with that, so.
Good question. Okay, thank you. David, quit being so efficient.
Yeah.
Michael Brown.
Good morning.
Morning.
The next, you want me to jump right into it?
Please.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is a request to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to amend the Airport Management Services Agreement between the Hastings City Berry County Airport Commission and Mark Noteboom, the current airport manager. This is a request to increase the compensation to the airport manager by an additional $2,000 a month to help cover the expense of hiring an assistant to train as a possible replacement for Mark Noteboom when he retires. This was presented to the Airport Commission at their meeting on, I believe it was
Last Tuesday, whatever.
yeah, there was May 9th is when they approved it, and it may have been discussed prior to that at a meeting, but they, the Airport Commission held a special meeting on May 9th. Copy of the minutes are attached, and discussed this, at which time they approved of the contract. Because it is a contract, it requires the approval of both the city and the county before it can go into effect.
Okay. Additional comments, Commissioner Smelker, Commissioner Tunison from the Airport Board?
It was brought to us, and it's an amendment to his contract. So he can pay for the assistant. So,
Does he
I
have an
agree.
assistant in mind, or
yeah.
he currently has somebody hired to replace him?
Yes, the one assistant, Mark Anderson, has moved on, and this one is Gino, but this is just to raise his contract. It's his responsibility to pay for anybody that he hires in his contract.
Yeah.
So once he retires and he doesn't have the assistant anymore, the assistant moves in that position, does it then go back down?
That's gonna go out for hire. Okay, and once Mark retires, then we'll advertise for a new director of the airport. And whether it's Gino or not, this kid that he's training will be determined then, whether or not the board hires him.
I just thought it was odd that to hire someone, you would give a particular person more money and then that person pays out of his money. It seems like it would be a direct contract with that person.
He's a subcontractor. Mark, you're trying to get away from the employee situation. So in other words, Mark is basically the contractor out there, and basically he is paying him and that's why the increase.
To ensure that the Airport Commission maintains an independent contractor role or relationship, if you may, with the airport manager. the Airport Commission worked a number of years back with an attorney to make sure that relationship met the litmus test, if you may. And they have a contract with the airport manager. Instead of having then a second contract, in which case you start to get into a situation where it appears that the Airport Commission is employing people and then has an employer relationship. They simply contract with the airport manager. The airport manager then is responsible to subcontract or hire any staff that he may need with regard to the operations. So that's the intent here, is that to make sure it maintains an independent contractor relationship. The commission will only compensate the additional $2,000 if in fact the airport manager brings on an individual to begin to train. If he does not, then that additional remuneration, I guess, will not be paid to the airport manager.
Yeah, it basically boils down to, as long as this kid is out there working, then he's gonna get compensated. If he's not, he's not. So that's what Michael's getting at with it'd be an additional $500 a week, basically.
Okay. Additional questions? Hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the first amendment to the amended and restated Hastings City Berry County Airport contract for airport management services between Hastings City/Berry County Airport Commission and Mark Noteboom, dated March 9th, 2021, as approved by the Hastings City/Berry County Airport Commission.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Smelker, support by Hatfield, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the first amendment of the amended and restated Hastings City Berry County Airport contract for airport management services between Hastings City Berry County Airport Commission and Mark Noteboom, dated March 9th, 2021, as approved by the Hastings City/Berry County Airport Commission. Additional discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Next up, sale of the property at 2350 Iroquois Trail.
Sure, thank you. So this is a request to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of Resolution 2315, which is a resolution approving the sale of surplus county real property, which is located at 2350 Iroquois Trail. Approving the purchase agreement and sale price, and authorizing county officials to execute and deliver any necessary documents to complete the transaction. So we previously talked a little bit about this project, that the county has, I keep wanting to say 23, it might be 28 acres of property and a building located out on Iroquois Trail. The YMCA of Berry County approached the county to purchase that property. The YMCA of Berry County is an adjacent parcel owner. We had the property appraised. You all should have received a copy of that appraisal, and the YMCA has made an offer that's slightly above that appraised value. As an adjacent property owner would like the opportunity to add that to their property so that they can program with it. I'm not going to begin to try to explain that. I do see that John Sporer, the executive director for the YMCA, is here should you have specific questions about that, although I think he's been here before to explain it a little bit. So we do have a purchase offer attached. That purchase offer does spell out the purchase price of $750,000. There was, between the time that we received the original purchase offer from them and today, we had a hailstorm event. So I'll point out in the purchase agreement that we did file a claim with our insurance company and that claim was validated. They sent an adjuster out. We have chosen to take, if you may, a cash payment, a depreciated, albeit cash payment, and turn that over to the Y, instead of us going through the process of replacing that roof. We felt more efficient, if you may, for our time. And then it allows the YMCA to, if you may, decide what they want to do, as well as own the warranty on that roof instead of us. So that settlement payment that would come from the insurance company and then be turned over is $38,270.77. And is outlined on page 6 of the purchase offer if you're interested in that. And possibly the other is the purchase price, which is on page 1 of the purchase offer. So I'll stop right there and try to answer any questions if I can.
And just for review and for additional information, because it's been a minute since we've covered this. In 2022, we had the appraisal done, and I think that appraisal was for around $715,000.
Correct.
We felt the value had a little bit of a bump in property appraised value based on what was happening in the real estate market. We had the Commission on Aging through that building, and they had some interest in the building, but ideally the location wasn't suitable, especially in the winter months, for getting people out there. YMCA already has a footprint out there. They've been a good community neighbor out there to the YMCA. They want to expand their child care services and youth services to the area. We felt there were several benefits to the community by considering that offer from the YMCA. In additional conversations with local real estate professionals, asking them the value of that building sitting on that property, was it remarketable? Could we get something? It was hard to find comparables because it's in such a remote location for us to actually, it may have sat on the market for years, before somebody could find a use for a commercial building out in the middle of nowhere. That was the opinion of local real estate professionals. The other thing is just the price of that property. We're now, because it's not occupied, the Township of Rutland has sent us a tax bill for that as well. So we are expending taxpayer dollars to the tune of $10,000 or $11,000 a year just in property taxes on that as well. So it seemed to make sense. We had an offer in hand, and I appreciate Gary White's comments about the fact that it could have been developed over time. You could put real estate on there. There could be property value associated with that. We like the community aspect of working with the Y, continuing to develop the resources that are going to benefit the community immediately versus hoping for something, in the longer term vision, although I can certainly see the point that he made on that as well. So I think it's a win-win for us, but I'm happy to entertain any other questions or comments from commissioners or from John, since he's here in the audience, if you have questions for John.
I had a question. Were there any other acceptable, viable alternative bids on this property that the county received?
The county did not advertise this one for bid.
But people were aware of that we've been discussing it for several months, so people were aware that this property was for sale. Did the county receive any interest from any other parties wishing to purchase it?
No. I'm trying to think if we did, but no, we did not.
Okay. Additional questions? Catherine.
My only comment is, again, speaking to the concern that this could go back on the roll, it could be sold. Vacant property is in demand, but it is a commercial building in a odd location. So just figuring up, it would be $34,000 an acre. It'd be hard to, and then they'd have to take the building down to put housing in there. Not very realistic, even in this housing market.
It'd be a lot of work for a developer to undertake that.
unless you were gonna make it a community center or do something else to it, but it would take a lot of vision to create that, so.
Yeah, the building would have to come down, because it's high ground there. And it's a viable spot.
Could I make one other comment?
Sure.
If the county is actually receiving a tax bill for $11,000, it should appeal that, I would think. Whether the county is using that building or not, it's still owned by the county. County-owned property is tax exempt.
Michael, do you know the ruling or the statute on that?
So I share Commissioner Doster's opinion or feelings on, maybe more feelings on the position. But there was a ruling that related to Mount Pleasant that has effectively changed that. And the fact that a municipal government simply owns property does not anymore remove it from the tax rolls. You have to go through a process to show that you're doing certain things with it to market it or other. And I apologize, I wasn't prepared to answer that question, so I can help get that if you're interested. But yeah, I struggled with this as well. Reached out to our attorney with Micah Myers and said, hey, wait a minute, what? And was, if you may, proven wrong that simply by virtue of owning property, that doesn't remove it from the tax rolls.
But you said, or actively trying to sell it, which would be the case here.
The issue that we had with regard to the tax bill that's going on is that it was just sitting vacant, idle. We weren't, in their eyes, actively doing anything with it.
Yeah, I talked to the assessor on that, Commissioner Doster, and he said the same thing, seeing how it was inactive and not being used, that he had the right to put it on the tax roll.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Additional questions? I will take a question, sir.
That's a long one. Just hearing about the property sold earlier. What was the process to market the Iroquois Trail property? Does it follow Berry County policy? What is financial loss if it was put back on the tax rolls to the county, the school districts, and the townships over the next 20 years if it goes to a nonprofit? Thank you.
That was a lot of questions.
One long one.
Go ahead, John.
Since Mr. Spores is here, could he tell us how many kids he puts through the YMCA in a year and possibly how much daycare this could possibly get for our county?
Good morning, John Spore, Executive Director of the YMCA. Thank you for the conversation. Lots of good thoughts. To answer your specific question, Commissioner Smelker, we have 500 children registered for summer camp this summer. That includes 20 day campers per week, so the bulk of our business is in the overnight camp. This property would effectively allow us to double our day camp numbers next summer when it's up and running. As far as childcare, we currently have agreements with the Nazarene Church in Hastings where we have 50 families enrolled. With the appropriate staffing, we've gotten guidance from our child care licensing that we could provide services for up to 80 or 90 families at our new site. So it would expand services in regards to nonprofit status. I think the government determines that businesses like ours add value to the community that's greater than the tax value when you peel back all the numbers for the families that rely on the services and the enrichment we provide the youth.
Additional questions for John? Catherine?
Will you be providing daycare in that new facility and day campers?
That's the plan, yes.
Okay.
I'm glad this was brought up because all we've talked about is sale prices and taxes, but we didn't hear about the benefits and the children that it's going to benefit and the families. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Gary, I don't think I can answer your questions today, but if you give me a list of your questions, I'll get those answered for you, or we'll discuss them.
And do you have a policy that allows it to be sold this way? I guess that was the biggest thing. Because you have policies to sell equipment and surplus. If you follow your policy, that's the one I want to.
Michael, I don't know that there's a strict policy on the sale of county assets.
I can look, but in this case, the board ultimately decides at the end of the day. You can choose to, if your policies are designed, you establish those policies for administration and others to follow. They're guideposts for you unless they're by law, right? And this one I did ask the attorney, I said, do we have the right to sell surplus county property? And yes, this one, you do have the right to sell that without going out for bid or anything else. So you ultimately, because you're the one that sets the policy, can choose to say, this is what's most advantageous to the county and the community, including if there is a policy varying from that policy.
Okay.
So we can't, as administrative departments, we have to come to you then if we want to veer from that policy to ask for approval to do something different. You're ultimately making that decision now, if you may, by having this discussion to say, should we bid it out or shouldn't we? What is most advantageous to the county and to the community in disposing of this property?
Okay, thank you. Additional questions? Okay. Hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners adoption of Resolution 23-15, a resolution approving the sale of surplus county real property located at 2350 Iroquois Trail, Hastings, Michigan, approving purchase agreement and sale price, authorizing county officials to execute and deliver necessary documents to complete the transaction.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Hatfield, support by Calton, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners adoption of Resolution 23-15, a resolution approving the sale of surplus county real property located at 2350 Iroquois Trail, Hastings, Michigan, approving a purchase agreement and sale price and authorizing county officials to execute and deliver necessary documents to complete the transaction. Additional discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, John. Steering Committee. We had talked about, as the process moves forward with the sale of with the Commission on Aging building, new building underway, at some point in there, putting a steering committee together involved with some county commissioners, some people from the Commission on Aging, some people from Thornapple Manor, Harvest Point. Just as, and I think there may be a little bit of a misunderstanding that I kind of gathered from some of the comments that that we were controlling the building or taking over the building, and that's not the intention of a steering. The steering committee is designed to have the Commission on Aging bring those ideas so we can look at placement, we can look at the modeling on where it goes, on how it fits into the campus out there, and to make it all work. They may have guidance, they may have suggestions, and I think those opinions are good. As you know, the county has a substantial investment in this project as well, and we're just hoping to see a successful completion as quickly as possible, and our goal is not to take over the process, but to hopefully encourage, enhance, and to bring some other ideas and creativity to it to make it go smoother. I don't know, Courtney, if you have any ideas or comments on that, but, you know, we're not here to control it, but merely to be a guide and to be a sounding board so we can be sure everything that needs to be done gets handled, and we have commissioners on board. I have recommended David Hatfield, Bob Tunison, and Catherine Getty to serve on that steering committee at this point, just to help that process. I know Bob is already working with Commission on Aging, so that seems to be a good fit. David and I have had several discussions with Rebecca and with Courtney as well, so I see that process working smoothly. And we have listed Rebecca DeHaan, and Facilities Director Jim James is also serving on that committee. Rebecca and Jim could also, based on their timing, decide that they want to appoint other people to those positions, just as the Commission on Aging Board can also appoint individuals on there that they feel would be most beneficial for that. So it's not designed to be a strict, has to be, but this is what I'm recommending from our standpoint. The commissioners and the other people who serve on that board, I think, can be flexible based on their input.
Well, we've got a great building committee up there, and we worked well together, and they put a good process together. So we've had numerous meetings, one a month ever since the beginning of the year. And I want to reiterate that too, that this is no way are we taking this away from that. So you'll be included in there. So, okay?
Any other comments or questions from Commissioner Hatfield? Or
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I would hope that the committee would comply with the Open Meeting Act in that it would have the meetings noticed, allow public comment, and have minutes that could be distributed to the rest of the board so we could be kept, apprised of how things progress.
Okay. And Commissioner Colton, you certainly are invited to participate in those meetings as well. We know that you're actively serving on that board right now. 4 commissioners does not create a quorum, so if you want to attend those meetings and participate based on your knowledge and information forward, you would also be invited to go there as well. I didn't mean to exclude you from that as well, so.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a little different opinion on whether 4 people commit a quorum on this board. It's true that 4 are not a majority, but if 4 commissioners decide to not approve something, it cannot be approved. So in effect, 4 people do, in effect, create a quorum, even though under the law, perhaps 5 is a majority is a quorum. But I would stay very, very cautious about 4 people deliberating toward a decision, because if the decision's no, you are making a decision. That's why one of the reasons that I asked that this board comply with the Open Meeting Act, then you don't have to worry about that. If 5, 6 commissioners show up to it, it's perfectly fine.
Yeah, and
my opinion. I mean,
yeah, just for note, the steering committee is not approving the expenditure of funds. They're not spending money. They're not spending taxpayer dollars. This is strictly a steering committee helping to guide the process. So, there's a little bit of a difference, but we can certainly talk to Michael about clarification to be sure that we are within the means of the law for that. So, appreciate those comments. So, additional questions?
No, we just need to get the ball rolling, and that's what this is all about right now. So.
Absolutely. Okay, without any further discussion, the chair would recommend, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners the formation of a steering committee consisting of County Commissioner David Hatfield, Bob Tunison, and Catherine Getty, Commission on Aging Director Courtney Zinni, Thornapple Manor Administrator Rebecca DeHaan, and Thornapple Manor Facility Director Jim James, and 3 members recommended by the Commission on Aging Board.
So moved.
Motion by Tunison.
Support. Campbell.
Support by Campbell to recommend to the Board of Commissioners forming a steering committee consisting of County Commissioner David Hatfield, Bob Tunison, and Catherine Getty, Commission on Aging Director Courtney Zinni, Thornapple Manor Administrator Rebecca DeHaan, Thornapple Manor Facilities Director Jim James, and 3 members recommended by the Commission on Aging Board. Additional discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion carries. Rachel France. Good morning.
I am
Frank Fiala from the Berry County Road Commission. I have the pleasure to serve as the chair of the Solid Waste Oversight Committee, and with me Rachel France, who is our recycling coordinator that works for the Conservation District. And the Solid Waste Oversight Group asked me to convey to you folks just a thank you for the support and realizing the importance of overseeing the landfill and recycling activities within the county that are going on. You're all aware that Rachel has presented to you a number of things about the data and the things that are picked up at the household hazardous waste event and the other kind of activities that we have. We have had Rachel as a pilot program that you folks to your group approved 2 years ago, and we did a one-year pilot program, and we did a regular program this past year, and we want to extend that for an additional year. It has just been a godsend to our group to have her and the Conservation District and the assistance they have been to us. We are all volunteers. There are 12 of us on the committee, and all of us have a number of things going on, and having a coordinator to focus and go to the meetings and follow recycling activities with the many things going on in the state of Michigan at this time, it is just really, really helpful. I think it has been shared with you, and we'll give you more detail. We have an oversight committee, and we need to form now with new legislation, we need to form a new group, a planning group, coming up with a new plan. Our plan was created in 1992 and last updated in 1999, and a lot of things have changed with recycling and landfills in that time frame. So we're going to talk to you about the formation of a 12-member board, some of the same people that are on our board and some additional people, and we'll get more detail on that. And Rachel's going to play a major role in the new kind of a plan we need to put together. We just are totally dependent on her for that. Rachel, would you say anything? Just wanted to.
Yeah. So today we're just asking for an extension of that contract. It's almost identical to last year's contract with a couple of things removed and a couple of things added. The things that were added were for the material management planning that will be occurring. So I just attended a conference last week that was focused a lot on that. I heard from Eagle representatives about how that's going to move forward. I talked to you about that in January or February, I think it was this year. So Eagle will be sending the Board of Commissioners a notice of intent, and when you guys, if and when you return that, that will make you the county assurance agency, and then you will appoint that 12-person committee, and we will, if you allow us, to make some recommendations for that and kind of give you a guide of what we're looking for. And that's all I have.
Awesome. Commissioner Hatfield, Commissioner Getty, who serve on that board at this time, any input or comments?
No, but certainly supported. I think, you know, the activities speak for themselves over the last couple of years, and, you know, we've got work to do, but proven a true asset to the organization.
Commissioner Getty?
Again, Rachel has been a great asset, but also, you know, in helping us navigate the new legislation, it's significant. She's done a lot of research. She's very proactive in getting that information and very thorough. So we've been very, very happy with her.
Yeah, and when I served on that board last year, I would agree with those comments that being familiar with the recycling program and this board for several years, we seem to be at a standstill, and Rachel's been able to move that needle for us forward and done some good things, brought a new vision to that, brought some new communications and some new resources, so continue the good work, so.
Say nothing of the grants. We have a tire grant, so the tires at this point are at no charge to the people, and also a grant for putting the new plan in place. Just really very helpful.
Fantastic.
I had a question. I see that the proposal was submitted by Sarah Nelson, and it's my understanding she's resigned and is no longer with us.
Our contract is with the Conservation District, and she's in the process of leaving, I believe, the end of the month, and a new person will have that function. It works really well for us to have have the coordinator work for an organization like the Conservation District, so we'd like to have it remain there, and we've shared that with their board and, for all the administrative kind of things that occur. So that should be transparent of Sarah Levy.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Additional questions from commissioners? The chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to extend professional services agreement between Berry County and Berry County Solid Waste Oversight Committee and the Berry Conservation District for recycling coordinator services for 12 months effective June 1st, 2023 through May 31st, 2024.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Getty, support by Hatfield, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to extend the professional services agreement between Berry County Solid Waste Oversight Committee, and the Berry Conservation District for recycling coordinated services for 12 months effective June 1st, 2023, May 31st, 2024. Additional discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Limited public comment. At this time, any member of the public wishing to address the board may do so for up to 3 minutes.
Just a second, I want to turn my phone off. Jim Dell, Berry County Drain Commissioner. I want to clarify with you tabling the full faith and credit that, and I want everybody to understand, we will not be able to finalize our permit. Without being able to finalize our permit, we cannot pump to the gravel pit. Without pumping to the gravel pit, we can't see if it's feasible. I want it on record that the commissioners are okay with this, because I will get a lot of blowback. So at this point, us as delegated authority are being ordered to stop. And I know you guys can't respond, I just want it out in public, because I'm gonna catch a number of people that are gonna be not happy. So, thank you.
We'll have ongoing conversation about this.
Yep.
Additional public comment.
Gary White, Nashville. There's a saying out there, do as I say, not as I do. That's exactly what you went and did. You have policies for Berry County that really you should be doing as you say. You set the process for everybody else, correct? But your standards are above the law. Your standards are above everybody else that you set. By saying that, okay, we're not gonna follow our policy, but everybody else must. The taxpayers gotta follow our policies. Do you see a conflict in interest there? So you are the elites. You don't care about the policies that are set for Berry County commissioners or Berry County, its employees and its citizens and everybody else. I'm gonna go and talk about the jail. Has Berry County commissioners authorized anybody as a body to go look for property for the jail? Should that be authorized before anybody goes out and starts looking for property? Because you already have property that won't cost the taxpayers $1. There's some infrastructure sitting there that that could be done. The Economic Development Alliance, my understanding, wants the Berry County property, but it's going to cost the taxpayer dollars to go and get new property and build the infrastructure for it. So once again, who are we serving here? Are we serving the people of Berry County? Or are we serving nonprofits? Are we serving, I don't know, I thought you were elected officials of the people. It does not appear. I was surprised to hear that 3 people were associated with the Blue Zones now that are trying to say, well, we got to do this for the Blue Zones. $100,000 went to the Blue Zones too, correct? I didn't hear a disclosure about the people being on that when tax dollars went out to that. Did we ever get any information back from that? Neither? Either? I'm going to be gone out of here because I'm finding it's almost worthless to sit in here to know that the county has policies, but the commissioners have the authority to override anything that they want to do, whether it's the right thing or not. Just like, I guess the thing to remember is do as I say, not as I do. As a driving instructor, kids just waited for me to make a mistake. So as I said, I can only think of one time in 13 years that, and I'm not sure if they were right or not, but as I said, that I wasn't doing as I said. But you folks just did, I don't know. Those 500 kids, are they all Berry County residents? So you folks have a good day.
I'll try to make it quick. I apologize for coming back to the microphone. But I just wanted to make Friends of Pine Lake, we're an LLC now, make our points clear that we oppose a drain at any level. So when we're talking about, I know Mr. Jackson, you mentioned, well, it seems like people are interested in 892 and a half. The evaporation is 13 inches every year, 12 to 14, which came from Jim Dell himself. Today he said 6, because Jim will say whatever he says in the moment. His report back in 2019 said 4% of the lake was affected, and that was when it was 894.4, okay? Then when someone asked him the question, I think it was Mr. Tennyson, I forget, he said 100, and that's why you heard the crowd go crazy. So, you know, he'll say anything in the moment. Maybe he just forgot, but I don't think so. But we are opposed to a drain at any level, and I guess by definition then, we are opposed to setting any high lake level, which was attempted back in 1996. So because once you set that, we're not dumb. Once you set that, you've got to have some way to get to it. I mean, when they set that low level in the 60s or whatever, you can set it, but there was never any way. That was to turn on the pump, okay? Which, by the way, these guys, he and his lawyer, keep mentioning, we'll just turn on the pump. Built in 1971, has never run to its proven purpose to be able to fill the lake, okay? I also want to just offer an invitation to all members of the commission to come out to Pine Lake. You don't have to ride with me. We can find somebody else. We'll take you around and show you that right now the lake, because I have a gauge in front of my house, it's 893.5 as of this morning. These people who are claiming they have problems, maybe if they get to 894.4, they have problems which they could solve themselves, as many others have done. But at 893.5, 2, 3, maybe 5, and it's going to go down 13 inches this summer. So please, I know you all have my contact information. Mr. Jackson, I believe you have Vi Thompson's. Contact us. If you don't want to go with me, we'll have someone else take you around, any one of you, and we'll show you that these overblown ideas that there's all these problems, it does not exist. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment?
I can actually see the clock. Once again, Ted DeVries, Prairieville Township trustee and Pine Lake resident. And I want to thank Commissioner Doster for getting everything kind of stopped and so more information can come out. One of the things I just want to remind the board, you know, that legal lake level was set at 890.5. The low level was 890.0. And also, I talked with I talked with the Gun Plains supervisor, and they have not signed that resolution that Commissioner Dahl gave both Prairieville Township and Gun Plains Township in order to be able to pump to the gravel pit. So I was kind of hoping he might have been here to, you know, maybe talk about that. Also in that meeting on December 6th, he had mentioned that the cost of the project right now was sitting at roughly about $300,000, and that was in December. I would like to really know how much it has increased since then, since they've been doing a lot of this permitting. And also on that permit, if you read in your packet from Eagle, it does say that they expect the permit to get to 890.5. And if it goes to 890.5, that lake, it'll be a mess.
But I do believe that it needs to have a high level, because when it was at 894, there was a lot of damage. Now, maybe it isn't everybody, but there was a lot of damage to a lot of people at that lake. And I also, since I live there, if anybody wants to take a ride around the lake and see all the existing sandbags and the properties that are actually below the water level, I'd be happy to give somebody a ride too. So, but once again, and then another thing I guess I didn't point out too, and maybe they could clarify that, it is a drain system and not a drain project, unlike the Watson Drain District. So, and this would just be assessing the people that live around the lake. Now, Commissioner Dahl had mentioned at one time that if the project stops and people come back and ask and sign a petition, that he could turn it into a drain project. And I think that's a major concern also. I think something else that the board needs to look at, because then that will incorporate a lot of people. And I noticed too that of that surveys that was sent out, we got an email from Jim that 290 responses had come back. And I remember in that December one, you had talked about there just being 91, that the board needed to look at it. They'd go back in 60 days to kind of go over things. I don't know, you know, I could go back and look at all the videos. But anyway, thank you.
Additional public comment? Good morning, Rich.
Hey, good morning. Rich Timke, Director of Barry County Community Mental Health. So I come here this morning just to remind all of you and people in the audience and those watching that May is Mental Health Month. And so just encouraging everybody to do what you can to stay healthy, physically and mentally and spiritually. I'd also just like to mention one of the programs that we have is specific for those that have served or for veterans. And we have a veterans case manager, and when she's out and about talking, one of the things she does is connect with other local veteran services in the community. And they pass out these gun locks to the veterans or those that have served. I'm just going to leave these here. If you guys know of anybody that could use those, go ahead and take them. If you know of a individual that served or a vet that's just struggling with some things, have them give us a call. We're here to serve. And just again, May's Mental Health Month, so I'll do just a checkup. If you know of individuals that are struggling, again, have them reach out and give us a call. And also just like to, y'all sit up here, long meetings, listening to people on this side of the table. And I just want to say I know from being on that side of the table, it's challenging, so I just want to say I appreciate your work.
Thank you.
I better take my bag.
There you go.
Rich, could you hold on a couple minutes till after the meeting? So there's something I'd like to talk to you about. Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning still. I'm Mike Vandenberg, the supervisor for Gunplane Charter Township. So like Ted had said, we have not passed any resolution for this. We got the resolution that was submitted from our drain commissioner. And so we asked for more information, and listening to the testimony today from the drain commissioner here, Mr. Dull. So he's claiming that the water that's going to be dumped into this gravel pit's now going to move southwest, which is going to affect Gunplane Township. I've got residents along Marsh Road that already have high water tables that have issues with their septic systems. That water will drain to them. So taking water from one problem, putting it to another spot without having a hydrological study done to see what that effect's going to do, that's going to affect my residents. So if you guys do decide to move forward with that, can you please have that study done? Because that's going to affect us in Gunplane Township. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. Additional public comment?
I'm back. I just want to mention the importance of natural shorelines in inland lakes, and I did speak to Jim shortly after one of the meetings I saw him at and asked, because I looked on Google Maps to see what does the shoreline look like, and it is very heavily seawalled on that lake. So the amount of seawalls are definitely messing with the lake levels, so I think that's just something that people should consider when they're talking about drain problems, and also affecting people downstream is a very big issue. So, yeah, and if anybody needs information on natural shorelines, there are multiple websites. Eagle has the Michigan Natural Shoreline Partnership, and they have contractors that install those. So, thanks.
Thank you, Rachel. Additional public comment?
Morning, almost afternoon. Joel Ibbotson, Rutland Township. I was occupied during the first public comment, but just a comment, a small complaint, if you will. Our friend over here, Mr. Rick Moore, tells everyone every day, and I was here wasn't here to hear his announcement, to please speak into the microphone or use your outdoor voice, because one of the reasons why, when I'm on the road, I'll listen to the meeting, and the microphone batteries go dead in this quite frequently. And the only way we can hear then is if we turn our earbuds all the way up to hear the voice broadcast through those microphones. And then when Dave Jackson starts talking, it blows your eardrums out. So I appreciate the message for him. It is with good cause. Secondly, I had a discussion with Jim Dahl out in the hallway. Read this article here from Midland Report. Less than a month before rainfall caused several dams to fail along the Tittabawassee River, great river for canoeing, by the way. Michigan's Attorney General sued the dam for unauthorized lowering waters in Wixom Lake. In a lawsuit filed the 30th Judicial Circuit Court in Ingham County, Attorney General Dana Nessel claims that without authorization, Boyce Hydropower LLC dramatically lowered the level of Wixom Lakes, blah, blah, blah. And anyway, she sued to keep that lake level up. Well, my question for Commissioner Dahl is after she sued and the dam failed, they emptied that lake in about an hour and 45 minutes. So I think we ought to have a sign, perhaps we should have Dana Nessel as Drain Commissioner in Berry County.
Great. Thank you. Additional public comment?
I started early.
There you go. Get a running start.
I made some notes while I were listening to some of the other issues that you're dealing with. And a famous person one time said, "A rose by any other name is still going to smell like a rose." You can call it a steering committee. I still have my doubts. You choose people to sit on boards, and I've argued this before. Why do you put people on boards that you don't think can do the job? You put people on the COA board. The chair of that board assigned people to be on a building committee. Are you aware of even who's on that committee? We have a commissioner. We have some people from the public. We have some people that are board members. We have some people from the staff. Obviously, that committee is made up of people who understand what is needed at the COA. You have said that the COA is its own entity. This was a problem in the past. As I sat on the past boards, and it was suggested that we go out to Thornapple Manor. We said no, because we are a separate entity. We are in charge of the COA. You offered us land, you offered us money, and you said no strings. I don't think that's true. I think there are strings. You're going to have a committee that's going to look at what we need, when we need it, how we need it, and when our building committee meets again, we're going to be told what our opinion is. I hope I'm wrong, but in watching how these things have worked in the past, It has not worked out well. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Additional public comment? The gentleman in the suit.
Hi, Charles Hertzler, City of Hastings. First of all, I'll admit I'm not the smartest person in this room, so forgive me if I make a few mistakes. You guys take open bids to sell boats and cars. You put it out there for the public or anybody to borrow. But you got 22 acres of land with this building on it that it seems like you're just taking the fast track out. You're willing to sell it to a nonprofit, which then will not be paying taxes on the property, and you just said it's $11,000 that you gotta pay in taxes. So you're taking it back off the tax payroll again. Whereas, maybe you put a 3-month time limit on it, and you put it out there. Obviously, you don't have to use a real estate agent, because I don't think you're using one with the YMCA. Sounds like you're just doing straight on bidding. So you could do the same thing with that property. You wouldn't have to pay no realtor fees or nothing. Somebody could come along and offer more, get your best bang for the buck. Isn't that what you're supposed to do for the county? I mean, it's, gather our money and spend it wisely. And then that could go on the tax roll, whoever buys it and stuff. And so it's more money into the tax roll, which makes less burden on the people that live here, because now it's being distributed among more than just what's here now. It just seems like that there's more possibility than just giving it or selling it to the YMCA without any other competition being involved or any opportunity for someone else to want to do something more with it that would keep it on the tax rolls for the people. Like I say, I'm not the smartest man. It just seems like common sense. And you also said it's not feasible for the COA because of the location and driving out there, especially when, what about daycare? Are people going to go from Hastings all the way out there to drop their kids off if it's, it's a fair thought. I think that if it's bad for the older people, it's going to be bad for parents who have to get to a job, but they got to have daycare. It's just things to think about that I don't know if you guys, I'm sure maybe some of you thought about it, but I just feel like I need to bring it up and talk about it because it just, I think you could do better than fast tracking it to the YMCA. That's all I'm saying. And maybe that's the final thing. Maybe that's what you do, but at least give it a time period. You got to try. Maybe nobody will want it. You don't know until you try, until you put it out there. All right? That's just my thoughts. Thank you.
I promise I'm not an angel. And I'll be quick. Boy, I'll never forget Bob saying that you have to wear your big boy pants to sit in those chairs. Seen you guys be beat up a lot today, and I don't have any personal connection really to a lot of the issues. I sat through all that so that I could talk to Rachel about some recycling issues in our county. But I would like to say that, and most of you are much wiser than me, you know there's two sides to every coin. I would say be careful going with the morality take on the YMCA because kids aren't spending very much time with their parents these days. But that's a service that's necessary for our community. I understand they do good work. I'd also say at the same time, for example, there's a housing crisis in our community that might be subjective. Some of us like Berry County small, the way it has been, easier to manage, safer, nice community. So I would just like to side with Mr. Doster a little bit here and encourage you all to make sure that you're staying in your lane with Open Meetings Act when you're doing committees that represent the community, and also be careful that you're going to the court for lake levels when you need to, and it sounds like you got a good head about that, but thank you guys.
Thank you.
What's her name?
Oh, excuse me, I'm Amber Holtrust. I'm a precinct delegate for Hastings Charter.
Additional public comment?
Pat Jameson, South Bones Mill. I forgot to add this earlier, but it involves the master plan of 2040. How did Blue Zones get in there? If it's not a government entity, Blue Zones, you have said have been funded
from outside sources. So what is it doing in the master plan for until 2040? It involves the trails. Right here, Blue Zone served as an additional consultant within the Hastings Downtown Streetscape project. Encourages the municipal leaders and the design team to utilize complete street practices within the renovation. In January of 2022, the Hastings Downtown Development Authority met to discuss the revision and forward movement of the Hastings Downtown Streetscapes redevelopment plan. The DDA felt that the previous plan left room for further exploration. From the meeting, the DDA discussed parking access, connection to the Riverwalk, inclusion of mid-block crossings, bicycle accommodations, and connections to Tyden Park. The discussion with the DDA, the consulting team, and Blue Zones will drive the complete streets design in downtown Hastings that will set an example for the development across the rest of the county. And that's on page 34 of the 2022 Berry County Annual Report for Blue Zones. And it's titled Berry County Master Plan. A lot of the Blue Zones master plans are getting put into Berry County's plans. And a lot of the money is from anonymous donors. So who are you guys listening to? You know, Blue Zones is not good for Berry County, agricultural. And they want to go plant-based. That's not good, you know. Blue Zones doesn't fit Berry County. You know, we're the 12th healthiest county out of 83. We're doing good. There's room for improvement, of course. But I don't think we need to be putting Blue Zones into the Berry County master plan. So I'd like you guys to take that out of the master plan.
Thank you. Additional public comment? Moving on to commissioner comments. Commissioner Doster.
I have nothing.
Commissioner Colton.
This discussion on the YMCA buying the property, I was told one of the greatest things that a mentor of mine once told me is when you got a tough decision, always do what's best for children and people, and you'll never regret that decision. And when I think of the money I put into my children and grandchildren, college lessons and stuff, yeah, I could have put that money in the bank and still have it. But I invested in my children and grandchildren, and that's what we're doing. Maybe we can make a few bucks on taxes if we sold it to a private developer, but this is a lot of children, hundreds of children, and it's an investment in them.
I agree. Good comment. Commissioner Getty.
I agree. I mean, I really appreciated John coming up and presenting that perspective, because it's about more than dollars and cents, and more about the bottom line. And we've known that daycare is an issue in Berry County for a long time, and the YMCA has really stepped up to the plate in providing that necessary service. And they're, you know, it's not the same to equate it to the COA. There are a lot of families in that area that will benefit from having close proximity to a daycare.
Commissioner Smelker. Commissioner Hatfield.
I have nothing.
Commissioner Campbell.
I'd just like to go along with Catherine and Mike on that. The decision we made as a board pertaining to the Y is one of the reasons why I live in Berry County.
Commissioner Tunison.
Regarding the same subject, I think a lot of thought process has gone on this whole process for the last 3 months, 4 months. So you explored a lot of options. The chair, vice chair explored a lot of options. Michael explored a lot of options. It's the most effective way to utilize the building for the community and people of Berry County. So one more comment. I would really like to know what the fascination with Blue Zones is. As far as I'm concerned, Blue Zones is a lifestyle choice. I don't understand the three commissioners that are on Blue Zones. I'd like to know where the three commissioners are. I don't see it. Commissioner Getty supports it, supports the trail system. I agree with that. I have no problem with that. But lifestyle choice is what Blue Zone's all about. If I want to eat a hamburger, I'm going to eat a hamburger. You know, they're trying to steer people to a healthy lifestyle choice. Nothing wrong with that. You can either do it or you don't want to do it. It's the way it is in life. So, all I got to say about that.
Thank you. Couple comments. One on the Compensation Commission. John, I don't know if you had a chance to follow up with Gina Johnson on that as far as.
Have not followed up with Gina. I've had a talk with Tom Albert's office.
Okay. We will continue to work on that because I know there is a pending agenda request item to talk about that. We first wanted to talk to one of our state reps and the AG and see if there was a possibility of taking the shortcut through that and being able to do something for our elected officials. So that is the goal, and I'm gonna have a little more time to assist with that as well. Coming up, I'll be a little more available.
I'd still like to put it on the agenda for discussion of the committee, so.
And I agree with that. So the YMCA property has been available since late last summer when Community Mental Health moved out of it. It has not been aggressively marketed, but there has been no interest in that property outside of conversations with the YMCA, the COA, whatever the case was like that. So, and I feel that that was the right choice. They're a good neighbor to that community out there. It's close to Hastings. It's going to expand services in that area substantially with childcare and child activities going forward. So I'm happy that we could do something for the community, and that's a long-term investment. And Blue Zones. We've been talking about Blue Zones. I served on an Activate committee when it first got started, have not been actively involved with Blue Zones since then. I know Commissioner Getty is our executive director on that. But just a little bit of information that we had discussed on this, that we went and pulled some research and put together a few thoughts on this. Blue Zones is a privately funded organization. The Berry County Commission has no authority to activate, to deactivate, to sidestep, to do anything with Blue Zones. Blue Zones does not get money from Berry County taxpayers. Blue Zones, like all other nonprofits or all other organizations, can apply for state grants, federal grants, to do things in the community to improve the community. Patrick had mentioned consultants that the city of the city of Hastings, townships, the county can work with consultants, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Catherine, but typically Blue Zones operates as a free consultant for providing information to communities on that without charge. So when it was mentioned that when you see logos on buses that say Blue Zones, those are being paid for by sponsors like Pennock Spectrum, Corwell, whatever the name is now. One of the reasons I think it was attractive is because they have seen in other communities where Blue Zones comes in and has been successful, they have been able to reduce healthcare costs. One of the largest expenses for employers in the county is healthcare costs. So if you can reduce healthcare costs by 1, 2, 5, 10% over 5 or 10 years, you're saving your employers a lot of money, which enables them to also increase wages and salary and lifestyle. As Commissioner Tunison mentioned, Blue Zones is not a mandate. It is not something that anybody has to do, anybody is forced to do. It is totally optional for anybody to participate at their level. I happen to like that lifestyle. There's a lot of misinformation that I've heard from people saying that you have to eat bugs, that we're gonna drop kids off in the middle of the woods and make them walk to school. There's an article or there's some information here on safe schools, safe routes to schools. is a program to make it safer and easier for children to walk and bike to school. Safe Schools does not involve dropping kids off far away from the school and expecting them to walk or bike alone. Rather, it focuses on improving safety of existing routes and encouraging active transportation in a safe and responsible manner. So Blue Zones is an education program where it aims to allow improvement, working with the community, working with farmers, working with farm markets to allow access to healthier food. So they do that. That was part of the $100,000 investment for the study to see if there was an opportunity to improve that service provided in the city of Hastings. So as we continue to hear multiple attacks specifically on Blue Zones, there are Family Support Center, Spiritual Consultants, YMCA, Barry Community Foundation, Green Gables. There are all these other organizations who also work to improve your community on a local basis that are not funded by taxpayer dollars, that get state and federal grants fed into them as they apply for them. So Blue Zones is like those other organizations. They are not, like I said, a mandate on what you have to do, but they're an educational opportunity. If you want to follow those guidelines, you have an opportunity to do things in that order. So it's not a mandate, it's just an order to give people healthier choices, happier place to live, focus on exercise, well-being, and health. So I know Patrick said it doesn't fit Berry County, and it may not fit everyone in Berry County. It may not fit half the people, 3/4 of the people in Berry County, but if the 20% of the people or 10% or whatever the percentage is that likes trails, that likes walking, that likes outdoors, that likes a salad, God bless them. They can do what they want, when they want it. We are not telling you that steaks are bad. We are not telling you that sitting on the couch with your PlayStation indoors all week is bad. What we're telling you is you make your own choices as you feel they are best suited for your family, for yourself, for your choices. Like I said, there is not a Blue Zones army forcing Blue Zones on you. They are a free consultant that are paid for by sponsors in the community to help guide a better lifestyle for those people who want to participate in that. So this information is available. I'll be happy to get copies of this to anybody who wants to read this as well. I think it's available, as Patrick has seen, on the Blue Zones website. And I can talk to Jim McManus about Blue Zones' effect on the 2040 master plan. But again, Blue Zones is a free consultant to help do things that better the community. They're not out there pushing that agenda on people who aren't interested in it. And I don't think there's anybody here that I've talked to, and I've talked to a lot of people that have said, hey, we're being overrun. I mean, I get an email from Blue Zones and that's it. I haven't got a phone call. I've been invited to some events I haven't been able to attend. So, but they're doing good things in the community, especially for healthy lifestyles and driving down healthcare costs in the community. And for me, if you can reduce healthcare costs by 5 or 10% when they're going up 15 to 20% a year, they're doing good things. It's being embraced by employers in our community to help guide their employees to the level that they want to be involved in it. But, so I'm not sure why the attacks continue on Blue Zones.
Garbage.
But as a county, there are some good things in it. So anyways, I am done. If there's no further business to come before the board, we are adjourned.